On your mic.
Is all that? Okay. Anyway, you run into Lisa. She's had a couple of losses in her family recently. It's been pretty stressful year already for her, so give her a hug by her. Thank you. See her at 5:05. How was the 5:05 last night?
Excellent 5:05. We made it through that storm and where's Daniel? We had about 18 people even with the storm. So a couple of different clubs. We had at least 5 recruits. So they're last night. Interested in road. So.
That's good to hear that growing. That's crazy. So how about Sergeant Arms? How many we got here today? You ride your motorcycle with you?
Maybe. Morning, everyone. We have 22 Rotarians in attendance.
Hey, Chris, we had a late in 23.
Oh, with two? Yeah, I got it. I'm on top of that. We have 2 guests. One is a visiting Rotarian, and the other is Tom as a guest. You want to introduce?
So, everybody, this is Mike Penna. Mike has been with our company for 16 years plus. He has been up in our office in Rochester, New York. But he and his wife had the good sense to move to the promised land. So he has transferred to our office in Greensboro. He's been here about a month. And he has been asking me about Rotary and what's Rotary all about. I've been very interested in joining Rotary, so I told him to follow me. And do it. So please welcome Mike Penn.
You folks have a wonderful record.
Glenn's actually asked for an application, so he may only be a guest for a little bit longer.
I came as a guest about 10 times. I started getting worried that they were going to charge me breakfast. I'm pretty sure today's my birthday, isn't it, Rick? No, it's February.
I'm
Do we have
sorry,
any other birthdays?
yeah, but we can celebrate it today. You know, something I like to say that I'm celebrating my birthday today. Oh, it's your birthday? No, I'm just celebrating. So you can do that, Tom, but I'm sorry, but you're not officially on the list yet. All right, we do have some birthdays and we have some wedding anniversaries as well as club anniversary. So Mr. Rob mentioned, I saw him come in, there he is. Club anniversary, I mean, always actually. Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you for being here and all your service.
You're welcome.
Some member birthdays coming up tomorrow. We almost got to sing. We're here. And we've got Mike Andrews right here tomorrow. Got a birthday. We'll put you on the spot, you know, whatever. And 31. Huh? 31. Yeah. Your daughter around, must be your daughter. Sometimes I have to work on the programming here because that's anyway, we'll just go with that one. All right, and Mr. Robbie Hassel, here he is, one of these standing recognized, also on the 3rd tomorrow. Happy birthday to both of you. Let's see. Oh, and let's see, Matthew Foster. There he is. It's tomorrow, the big wedding anniversary. How many you guys got? You have 2 years. Oh, okay. How many years of marriage? 16. And Dan Quinn right here, he and Judy are celebrating their 23rd. So see Dan. And that's it for today.
Thank you, Rick.
You're very welcome.
I know everybody's worried about it because he's playing for second place. I turned my football program in. How's it going?
Well, so far so good. We've got about, I have about a dozen entries, but we need more. We've got till tomorrow night, 7:30 first kickoff. So Yeah, send them in. It's 97, or 99, 30. Sorry, I did it, 30, so I sent it. So yeah, 97:30, and obviously we have, Mr. Phoenix is wearing his beard, he was first to turn it in, so he's on plan. So, get it to me.
Now we're good with it, right?
All right, I think it's that time. I know there's so much great going on right now. How about some happy dollars?
Happy dollars.
Husband doing it? Bobby's got to collect them.
I'm collecting. Buster, we miss you. So I'm yawning during the pledge of allegiance. Yeah, I'm glad to know it. You start going to 505. 17 years ago. I'm glad to see you participate.
Surely somebody's happy.
Uh-oh, be embarrassed. I'll get fired.
Okay.
Happy dollars, that's
I'll let him know.
Y'all can find me.
I got one. I did something I'd never done before. I put it on Facebook, which I don't put a lot out there, but I went for riding a seaplane. A friend of mine. We, keeps it at Air Harbor. We repair out there. I was drinking, so I sat in the right seat. It was great. And nightmare, you know, airplane and a boat all at once. But, got a buoy, come down over the lake, land, and the boat just sort of get out of your way.
Is that like a hole in the air which you throw money up into? Is that, I mean, a boat's all.
Well, and the interesting thing is when we landed, we had to crawl underneath, and just like in a boat, it had to open the bilge and drain all the water out. That was kind of. Dr. Guy.
You don't need to call me later, so I'll do this as a happy dollar. So I've always wanted to learn how to smoke meat, which just sounds weird. So I decided I was going to go buy a smoker, and this all happened after I got voluntold I was leading our pigsty cooking event. So I've now cooked 3 pieces of meat, briskets and a pork shoulder.
Wow.
And it all came out edible. A couple of them were actually really good. So we're going to kick this off. We're going to be our team is going to be 2 practice cooks at my house. We have moved the location due to some technical difficulty. Matthew and I are leading the process here. Danielle's agreed to cook something. Of course, the master griller, Rick Martin, he's cooking something. We need a couple more people. There's 7 categories: beef, pork, chicken, ribs, chili, side item, and dessert. So if you have a special recipe, you want to come out and enter into the contest. If we don't have all 7 items, we won't enter all the categories. Can you all raise your hands if you've seen the rules in the entry form? Has anybody else seen it? So I'll send it out to everybody with instructions on where my house is, what time to show up. We do need, Chip, do you mind if we keep the name going?
No, I think you should.
What's the name of our team?
Uncle Burning Rock.
Uncle Burning Rock. Hey, guys, you don't want to try and hire any hot sauces to come along with it.
So we'll be starting this off. We got 2 practice cooks. The big event's November 6th. The category we usually win is the fundraising category, right? So we're going to win that no matter what. So everybody come out, buy your tickets. Do you have a question? No. Oh, okay. So I will have beverages. There'll be plenty of food. We'll be cooking. If you want to bring your own specials, whatever you want to drink, but otherwise we'll have beer and water and soft drinks or whatever. So everybody's invited. September 19th and September 18th and October 19th.
Right, I got one. So we went to the beach a couple weeks ago, and I got up early in the morning, have a bike and riding down the beach, and it's in South Carolina, Kiowa, and riding down, and I see up ahead in the early morning light this lump in the surf, the wet sand, not in the surf. Oh, it must be one of those horseshoe crabs, you know, up and down, get closer. What is that? I'm looking, I'm like, is that I see the striped tail, I'm thinking raccoon in Washington. So it was an armadillo. Origin in the salt sand, right there, and I thought he was dead. He was just so still, his little nose was down in the sand. But that's in South Carolina, they have armadillos.
Did he live all the way from Texas?
Yeah. Did you put him on the shower? Not a good time to do it. Where are all these dollars when we started?
Well, I mean, you want to now, one of those is, I'm so glad to hear that, because we were in South Carolina, down at the beach, in the same place, and we saw an armadillo run through it, and it was a knife, and somebody said, oh, that's an armadillo. No, I don't think so. You know, I grew up in Oklahoma, and Texas. That's the home of the armadillo, and that's South Carolina. Where you got a little of the light, that damn armadillo. So I'm glad somebody could witness it. I really did see that. And it was nice while we were smoking that. We were just smoking, portion. The other hand, you got, for the practice, cook-off. And I'm really excited about this. We're gonna do good this year. We're gonna do more than the fundraiser thing. And thank you, Guy, for having everybody over. And I just hope everybody can participate, bring a friend, and we need people to eat. And that's usually not a hard thing to find, because when we do the practice, we're gonna have all of this stuff that we're cooking. And there's no way that all of us even could come close to it. So you need to bring a friend, plan on coming, have a good time. But like I said, please think about maybe everything in those categories. I've got a great chili recipe. Can't do everything, so if you think you might want to do it, we can do that. And Blues Lake, seaplanes landing on the water while some people are trying to water ski. That's probably your buddy, and I'm grateful that it didn't run over us. I asked him, is this a boat with some guys back there doing something like that? Move on. Yeah, really. Hey.
Well, this will have to be Venmo, free Venmo dollars for another South Carolina story and involving a bike. It was my son's 30th birthday last weekend, and so Pete and I went down to their place outside of Greenville, South Carolina, and they live on Paris Mountain, which is about 9 miles outside of town. And we rode bikes down from their place, and there's a greenway. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Greenville, but it is an amazing town. And we rode the greenway all the way down. It was surrounded by now cafes and small bars and beer joints and all that. It was a really nice ride down. And coming back was a little bit more challenging, but anyway, great time.
Now that I thought about it, I got a Rotary happy dollar, and I'll have to Venmo it to you. But last night at the 505, Mary Haybrock was there. She called up and was asking me about something else. I said, Mary, you and Bob both need to come back to Rotary. They both have been members of this club at one time or another. And I said, we're having a 505. Come on, she said, great, I'll bring a friend. So I got there early. Mary was there, poured down my hand. Then this guy walked in. He looked a little familiar. He walked right up to me and I said, hey, how are you? And he said, I thought so. Chip person, right? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, I was your Dreyfus wholesaler in 1992. You haven't seen me since then. I got out of the business shortly after that. He went around the world, did a couple of things, climbed Kilimanjaro. No less, got that picture right there. Came back, became a stockbroker down in Raleigh. Something happened to that. And he just moved to Greensboro in July, still a stockbroker. And he walks in last night. I've not seen the guy since 1992. And he recognized, remembered me. He was a member of a Rotary club down in Raleigh. And he mentioned to Mary, who was his realtor, that he's looking for a Rotary club. So here you go. Small world story, I guess. Rotary small world story, maybe. But anyway, there you go.
It's just a pyramid scheme.
That's it.
Sell it up to each other and get rich.
all these dollars, I'm reminded, Grandpappy said if he had $1 for every woman that found him unattractive, they would now find him attractive.
Quickly, Bobby was the first person I ever went up airplane with. I had a fear of flying until Bobby took me up. I said, that looks like a coffin.
He got to the door and he looked at it, he said, this looks like a coffin.
We'll get Barry Butesh to talk about Crescent's fundraising, speaking of pyramid schemes.
Thank you so much for giving me a minute to speak. Yeah, Barry Butesh with Pursuant Rotary, and we're getting ready to have our annual boiling brew. Some of you may have attended that in the past with the Cadillac Garage. We've moved out to Summerfield Farms. We've outgrown Cadillac, and it's 4 different microbreweries. It's a shrimp, a low country boil and brew, live music, auction. And we're raising money for disadvantaged children and food insecurity. And so it'll be a great party. And I hope that there's some flyers on your table. And if you just go to boilandbrew.com, you can purchase tickets, you can become a sponsor, and all the information is there. But it'll be Friday, October 1st. Thank you so much.
Barry? Real quick announcements on 9/27, September 27th, there'll be a new member orientation at Cafe Pasta. District golf is October 14th. I think Lisa's got a team playing in it, and anybody wants to play in that. And if you're interested in being a district governor, I know I am. You're thinking about nominations for it. If anybody's interested in being an assistant district governor or something like that, let me know. Real quick, we're gonna do, Donnell called me last night and said, let's play a game, you old coot. And I said, who do you call an O? She said, no, it's Kahoot. We're gonna play it again. So she's gonna run through that. I got a couple of prizes. I think Lester swept the board last time, so I'm gonna give it to Donnell. She's also gonna talk about her business a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully I won't put you guys to sleep. Buster, I was expecting you to be here. I brought your swag. All right, guys, give me a minute to log in. Do you remember how to play from last time?
Just remind me what website you get.
Go to kahoot.it. You do not need to download anything. So pull up your web browser, kahoot.it, and then click play.
Right? Yep.
OOT.
You give us a game there, or is that the same thing every time?
No, I will generate it. Let me get to the game. So this one's supporting the football pool. So it's all about football today.
The first one to speak, Liz.
Ah, hold on. Okay, we should be good. And then while we're waiting for the pin to generate, September 9th, David Graves, he's not here. He's on the invitation schedule. The 16th is Robert Gray. Judge, you're the 23rd. And then Bob Haberock is the 30th. So I'll reach out to those folks that aren't here to make sure that they know if they're on the schedule. So go ahead and enter your game pin. If anyone needs help, raise your hand. I'll be around. You playing? Okay. There's some original names.
Waiting for another guy.
All right. You guys good? Judge, you up there? You in?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this one? Oh. You threw me. You ready? Remember, the faster you answer, the more points you get. True or false, during an NFL game, the ball is in play for less than 11 minutes on average. True. Most of you got it? Ooh. What team has lost the most Super Bowls? I'm glad to see it wasn't the Cleveland Browns up there because I'm from Cleveland. Broncos. Super Bowl 51 was the first to go into overtime. Who ended up winning? The Patriots.
We start over.
I would think you would have been on the top. You're running the pool. What team has the all-time best win-loss record in the NFL? Cowboys or Packers? Cowboys. Which team has won the most Super Bowls? The 49ers or Packers? All right, last question. Browns is the team in the NFL that has gone the longest without a playoff win. Yeah. I do a lot of engagement stuff. It's a way for me to teach people without them knowing. Who's RPM? Ah, very nice. Nickname?
That's me.
That's you, Matthew?
Oh.
Sure, then Taylor?
Taylor.
All right. Okay. Oh, okay. Second place? The third place? My tickets are cut. Sure. I won't bore you to death. I'll just do a quick little update. So Lisa asked me to do the business highlight, and I can either do Cone Health or my business. And I'm COVID out right now with Cone Health. So I figured I'd focus on my business. We've got 3 minutes. So for those of you guys that don't know me, I'm Danielle, and I have a concierge business. I was crazy enough 3 years ago. Next month will be 3 years to start a business while working full-time at the hospital. I don't know if that was the smartest move, but I'm optimistic and I'm afraid to give up, but too stubborn to give up. So here we are 3 years later. And it's exciting. We do a lot of errands for our clients as part of concierging. We have several that we do weekly runs for, gift wrapping, shopping, home organizing. And I never would have thought 3 years later, I'm at the point where I am now. I'm really proud of my little baby, right? Because that's when you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business, it's your baby. And I'm at the point now where we're looking at bringing on more part-time staff. So if you guys have anyone in mind that you would think would be a great concierge, I'm a pretty cool boss, so send them my way. But it's exciting to know that I started something, and honestly, it started around the same time I started with you guys. So I feel like I've grown with the club, my business has grown with the club, and I'm really excited to be able to say that. So that's my update on my business.
So Taylor's gonna come up, she is a guardian ad litem, and introduce our speaker.
Guilty confession, I literally know nothing about football. And I mean that.
That makes it all.
It was great.
I knew it was weird.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am very pleased to introduce you all to our speaker this morning, Ms. Monica Ramos, welcome, who I had the pleasure of working with during my guardian ad litem training back earlier this year. Monica is a guardian ad litem supervisor with the Greensboro office. The guardian ad litem, or court-appointed special advocate, also shortened to CASA, is a best interest advocacy program that pairs court-appointed volunteers with children who have experienced abuse or neglect. Monica began her journey with the CASA program of Montgomery County, Texas, 7 years ago. She was one of the instructors who led our virtual classroom lessons and small group training. She was one of my favorite instructors, and because of her knowledgeable insight and the advocacy and passion she shows so clearly when you speak with her. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Monica Ramos. Thank you.
I think it's even turned on.
I've been sitting here all morning, and it's been all fun and games, and now I feel like I'm gonna ruin the moment, because it's some serious stuff. So I'll try to be quick and try to be as lighthearted as possible. But the Guardian ad litem program, has anybody heard of it before today? Okay, all right, so I can be pretty quick with this then. So we advocate for children who are abused and neglected, who come into the foster care system. And we operate under the judicial system. So most of you know, appellate, superior, district courts, we're under district courts. And while there's different areas with district court handles, we're under juvenile matters. So you're probably more familiar with delinquency court. You probably have a teenager who tries to steal a car and get some charges, and he has to do delinquency or she. We're under the A&D court, abuse, neglect, and dependency. That's where our program kind of begins. Just a little bit, the Guardian ad litem program, and the Guardian ad litem is a Latin term, it just means for the case. So we are only appointed while the case is open, while that child is in foster care. And only in the juvenile system is the Guardian ad litem a volunteer, a community volunteer. And as Taylor mentioned, we are known across the nation by different names. CASA, when I was working in Texas, we were CASA, court-appointed special advocates. Here in North Carolina, we go by Guardian ad litem. And they're also known as Pro Kids, Voices for Children, and Child Advocates everywhere else. So how do you get involved? Our program becomes automatically involved when a child comes into custody. So there has to be abuse or neglect that occurs. And that typically happens when a parent has failed to provide a safe environment for the child. The Department of Health and Human Services, DSS, DHS, foster care, goes out and investigates after receiving a report and decides at that point whether or not that child needs to come in custody due to there being a serious risk of further exposure or abuse and neglect. So once that child comes into custody, DHHS files a petition with the court system, and so that's what brings them in. At that point, automatically, our program kind of begins there. And so what happens is the children go through whatever it is they're experiencing in their home environment. It's very traumatic. And just the act of removing them from that is something that causes a kind of a ripple effect. And so just leaving the only thing they know causes so much for these kids, which is where our volunteers really do make a difference. The program for foster care is governed by so many statutes and federal laws and policies and that kind of thing. So part of what we do is we're also making sure that those are being followed, being enforced for the better of the child. So our mission to advocate to the court for children to be placed out of the foster care system into a safe permanent home as quickly as possible. We ensure that the children's needs are being met while they're in the foster care system. We want to see that every child that is in foster care has a guardian ad litem. Right now, these numbers are a little off, but we have about 450 children in foster care in Guilford County. Out of those 450 children, we have right now about 150 volunteers who are covering, I would say, about 300 children. So that means about 150 children right now without a guardian ad litem. Those children without a guardian ad litem are less likely to receive the services they need while they're in the foster care system. We are a small staff of 7. Taylor and I were just talking about, my boss just sent out an email yesterday about how some grant funded positions that we have are increasing them. So as of October 1st, we go from 9 staff to 7. There's currently 3 GL supervisors, myself included. In Greensboro, we're going to be down to 2. And in High Point, there's currently 2, we're going to be down to 1. So we have a very small staff right now. We are focused on our volunteers, and we need our volunteers to assist. We do represent children in court hearings, about 6,000 court hearings a year. So it's a lot. And so you're probably wondering, what does it take to be a volunteer? Who's a volunteer? There's no formal background. Where's my Marine? Wasn't there a Marine who were on earlier today? No. Anybody can be a volunteer. There are some requirements to go through it, but we have all walks of life. Steve started our program at one point, decided it wasn't quite something that would fit into his schedule. Taylor's with us now. Anybody else have any experience maybe in another state? Okay. But basically, there's no degree, there's nothing of that nature that you need in order to volunteer. What we do, so basically 3 things, right? First one, investigation. Now, we're not investigating what happened to the child that brought them into custody. That's not what we mean by investigation. What we mean is we're visiting the child regularly. We're talking to the adults in their lives, whether that's the therapist, their placement provider, foster parent, or even their biological parents, to kind of see what's going on. We're gathering information and we're reviewing records. We request medical records all the time. Our fax machine doesn't stop. We're looking at things to make sure that while the child's in custody and in the system, their needs are being met. They're going to the doctor regularly. If there's a recommendation that the child made or that the doctor made, that child is following through with it. And so an example of how that plays out, Meredith is one of my guardians. She's a theater major. She has no prior experience with any of this. She advocates for Sammy. Sammy's currently on her 8th placement and has had about 3 social workers so far since coming into custody about a year and a half ago. COVID has really dragged things on a little bit for us. Just recently, in talking with Sammy, Meredith realized that Sammy hasn't eaten in 4 days. She's so anxious about court coming up and what's going to happen, where are her parents and what's going on, that she's kind of starting to shut down. Well, in talking with Sammy, Meredith realized, okay, what are we doing? What's going on? So in speaking with the placement, we were able to kind of push and figure out that, okay, something's not right. She's not feeling well. Ends up taking her to the urgent care, not the guardian ad litem, but her placement provider. And we realized that Sammy really hasn't had therapy in a couple of weeks. It's been summer, the therapist has been out on vacation, things like that, but the anxiety level has risen because Sammy didn't have the services that she needed in place to begin with. So that's an example of how Meredith in this situation was able to assist. One of the other things we do is facilitate. What I'm hearing around here is that you all have a lot of, not necessarily connections, but you know a lot about this community, and you might be able to assist in that way. Guardians are not service providers. So like I said, we don't transfer children, we're not the ones to take them to the hospital, we're not the ones to give gifts or babysit them, we're purely advocacy. We are looking into what's going on with the child. We are bringing that information to the people that actually can do something about it, which is typically the Department of Health and Human Services, their social worker. So we're kind of that squeaky wheel. We're making sure that whatever's going on doesn't fall through the cracks. I've got a guardian who's been working with the girls about 10 years old now, so it's a little outdated. And in getting to know Camille and getting to know kind of what she's been going through, she's having a hard time adjusting to where she was placed. And it was a great foster home who was willing to keep her long term, but Camille just wasn't connecting. So that foster parent was feeling like, I don't know what else I can do. I don't know how to make her feel comfortable. I don't think she wants to be here. As Lisa, the guardian ad litem, was getting to know Camille and figuring things out, realized that one of the things Camille loves the most was dance. And that was one of the things that she used to do at her previous school, but she didn't have that connection anymore. And so Lisa, who's had 3 children of her own and has been a part of this dance group over here on Battleground, kind of approached the dance studio and said, hey, would you guys be willing to donate some lessons or assist? And she was able to figure that out to the point where she was able to take that information to social services and get Camille enrolled. And it took a little while, but after some time, Camille started to kind of open up and Camille started to kind of adjust. And at the end of that case, Camille ended up being adopted by that foster parent who was willing to do it from the start, but just could not figure out how to put it through. So I say all that to mean the things that we do as guardian ad litem really does make a difference in the long run. It might not be something you see immediately, but in the end, it does make a difference. And one of the biggest things we do is the reporting to the court. We're tasked with doing an independent investigation. We are completely separate from DHHS. So while we work with them, since they're the ones that are supposed to be providing services and we're sharing information, we are separate and apart. So the information that you gather going out to see the child, the medical records, the therapist information, the school, whatever that may be, we compile that and put it into a report for the court to be able to make recommendations. We also assist the child in coming to court. A lot of the anxiety that I mentioned with Sammy was about court. What's going to happen? This is their right. They can't sit in school and get through school day knowing that there's a court hearing that's about to decide whether or not they're going to see their parents again. So part of what the guardian ad litem does is they're there in court with the child. Sometimes they want to come in person. Right now we're doing a whole lot of stuff via WebEx, so a lot of kids want to come in person. And so who do they sit there all day with? Guardian ad litem are there with them if they have to be there with them to kind of ease them through the process. That's just another example that we skipped through. So like I said, you don't have to have a specific background to volunteer with our program, but there are some requirements, like everything else in life. There's an application, you'll be interviewed by somebody in our office, if not myself, the district administrator. We do background checks, there is a training. Taylor, how did you enjoy the training? Did you feel like you were supported and you were able to learn what you needed to do this?
Absolutely. Of all of the classroom work and training that I have been through, whether that be in my student life or my professional life, I think the training I received with the guardian ad litem most prepared me for what I was actually going to encounter once I started my advocacy.
And
After training, Taylor, you get ongoing support to say you encounter something you go, wow, they didn't cover it in my preliminary training.
Yes, absolutely. We have a built-in network. First step would be your guardian ad litem supervisor, which is the role that Monica is in. And then Monica herself, as the supervisor, has a supervisor and other built-in support networks if there's a question that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. You go through a training, it's a flex training, it's about 5 weeks long. You meet in person 1 time a week. to go over kind of what you've done in class. And then we graduate you, you get sworn in by the judge. But you do have support. You have a supervisor that you are under who's there to help you, to guide you, show you kind of what steps you need to be taking, what's missing, how to write that court report. So even though you have this training, the support is always there. We work with staff attorneys who also from a legal standpoint can kind of tell you if there's any holes in your arguments, if there's anything that we need to be looking at in order to present accurate and factual information to the court. The commitment that a guardian ad litem gives is roughly about 12 hours a month. You might drive out to see a kid and that might take you about an hour and a half. You might spend some time making some phone calls, requesting some report cards, some medical records, that kind of thing, just depending on how in-depth the case is. Taylor, I believe, has 2 cases right now with 1 child each. There might be a family group with 5 kids. We really try to work with the guardian to see what they have going on in their everyday life to make sure that a case that's assigned is something that can really fit in and is doable. Commitment until permanence. This has been tricky. COVID's really thrown a wrench into this. We typically see children in foster care take about 2 years to reach permanence. With COVID, we have such a backlog right now of cases, but we're trying to work through them as much as possible. And I think that this is where our program really makes a difference. As we're creeping up with court dates, if you've been doing your part as a guardian ad litem from month to month and are able to present accurate factual information, then you might be able to be the one to change the trajectory of that case. Where DSS may be just kind of holding steady and still kind of trying to work with the family, you may be the one saying, no, nothing's changed for this child, we've got to move on. So this is where I think our program now more than ever really makes a difference. Children in foster care who have a guardian ad litem are in foster care a lot less or shorter period of time. They receive more services and they have their voice heard in court. A lot of these kids, while they want to know what's going on and come to court, they're always nervous about talking in court. So as a guardian ad litem, you're the one expressing their wishes to the court. And I think that's the most important, because we often get into court and we're reading reports and documents and words on a page, and you as a guardian ad litem really bring that out and really humanize the child for what it is we're doing in the court system. So what can you do? If you're interested, the website has everything you need. If you know somebody who might be a good fit, that this is something that they're really good at, please share this information with them, send them to the website. And I'm here talking today, but if you have any other groups where you think they might benefit from this, or this is something that they might be interested in, let me know. I'm happy to come out and talk. Yes.
Quick question, first you folks are angels already. I'd like to go back to the funding point. How do you exist without funding? I know you said you volunteered, you said you had a grant, and can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so our staff is under the judicial branch. So we are state employees. So the 7 of us are paid.
Oh, okay.
But the 150 advocates, the guardian ad litem, those are all volunteers. And I think that's where the amount of work that a volunteer puts in, you can't, what that would cost the state of North Carolina would be, there's just no way. There's no way that would be.
You folks sadly see very good, sounds like attacking all the symptoms of the foster care system. Are there things in Lexington that you push back up the chain to reduce the number of foster children, make their situation better based on all the anecdotal analytics that are captured? Does that make sense?
It does. While we recognize the system and its flaws, that's a bigger task to tackle. So what we do, I mean, we really have to work within the confines of what we have to try to make it as best as possible. Our program exists to ensure that the kids don't fall through the cracks, because there's not enough social workers. The amount of children in custody, they don't have enough time. They can't follow and do every little thing and be on top of every child and every need, especially if the social worker has 10 kids and 5 of those 10 have now exhibited some behaviors because the holidays are right around the corner and they're experiencing loss and grief and they're not able to be with their family. And that one social worker can't be at 5 places at a time. So as a guardian ad litem, when you're focusing on that one child or that one family, you're able to see things, you're able to uncover things and bring it to their attention to see if there's something we can put in place. And then if we disagree or we can't, that's when we take it to the court for the judge to decide what needs to happen.
You folks are angels on
Thank
it.
you.
So what's the, I know it's a range, but roughly what's the time commitment for a volunteer?
So once you get through training is about 30 to 35 hours. We really do believe it could be about 12 hours a month, and that's at your leisure. So if you're working Monday through Friday and you want to go see Sammy, you can do that on a Saturday. It doesn't have to be within that Monday through Friday 9 to 5. So it really is flexible in that you can do it whenever you have time to do it. The only thing that we're not flexible on is courts. That's set on a certain day. You'll know that ahead of time. At least a month ahead of time, typically about 3 months ahead of time. You'll know when a court date is coming up. As your supervisor, I'll be reminding you, talking to you on a consistent basis, hey, we've got court, this is when the report's due, what have you done, what do we need to do, those kinds of things. So there is some flexibility, but it really does depend whether you have that 1 kid case or that 5 sibling case. Yes.
You mentioned your role as being independent. Can you talk a little bit more about your role as an advocate? Because so often the child that you're an advocate for is not there in court, or they're not part of the treatment team staffings, or they don't always understand the court process. Maybe they're too young, maybe they're just not engaged with that piece of it. But you've got a dual role as an advocate that's a voice for the court, as you said, but also to help the child understand and feel engaged and feel taken care of when so much of it is being talked about outside of their presence, but it's about them, that affects them directly. Maybe even if they've got a delinquency case, there's another lawyer over there involved. Can you talk about how you really are the sort of the glue to keep it all together?
Yeah, we are lucky and kind of unique because we have a staff attorney on the premises. Not all guardian ad litem programs have an attorney in the office. Most of them have a contract attorney who just shows up the day of court and handles court. We have an actual attorney in our offices that we can go to. In fact, if you're in our office, it's a little chaotic because we're yelling down the hall about different cases. Just because we like to know every aspect, because we do take pride in being the ones to inform the kids about what's going on. A 3-year-old, not so much, but that 14-year-old, that 12-year-old who's on the brink of what's going on, and you may be the one that gets through. You may be the one that's talking to them. Their social worker just came and said a million things, and they're like, I can't remember. I don't know what happened. And we just had that in court not too long ago. The child, 17, about to turn 18, met with a social worker to talk about what opportunities were out there upon turning 18. And that social worker kind of just went through it so fast, that child wasn't willing to sign into the program because she wasn't aware of what was really going on. So in bringing that to the judge's attention, the judge ordered that the child's attorney go through it step by step and break it down and make sure the child understood. And so we really are the ones that if we're following that child and getting to know that child and building that rapport with that child, we're the ones able to explain what's going on. And children are children and they hear what they want to hear. And as long as you understand that and you're willing to work through that, you really do allow them that peace to understand and figure out what's going on. The support system, the supervisor, the attorney, we don't leave you hanging. You will not go into any situation unprepared. We want to make sure that you feel as comfortable as possible because this isn't your typical volunteer position. This takes hearts, it will tug at your heartstrings. I mean, there are times where you might even need to vent about it because it's just such a strong situation. So we are here and we pride ourselves in supporting our volunteers because the work is so important.
I do have a small point to add on to that in part of your question. I actually had this happen last week at a court hearing where a young lady that I'm working with, she's about 16, there is human trafficking trauma, sexual trauma involved in her case. And English, she's still in the process of learning. As part of establishing her eligibility to receive a certain visa from USCIS, we had to talk about in pretty detailed what she had been through. And of course, the interpreter, the court interpreter is translating, and I can see the face of the child I'm working with as she's hearing all of these strangers get pretty gruesome details about what she's been through in a language that she doesn't understand, with a court interpreter rushing to interpret 10 different people's input. When we had our meeting, our one-on-one meeting after the court hearing, I asked her what she thought about the court hearing, and she said, I didn't like it, and I don't understand why that had to be talked about. So this child just sat in a court hearing and didn't understand why all of these strangers were talking about something that frankly haunts her, that she went through. And I'm not saying that me asking her the question and then giving her a breakdown of why that had to be talked about eased that for her, but I do think that when I was able to explain to her that it had to be talked about in order to establish for the court her eligibility, I do think that she was able to accept it a little bit more, and she was able to see that this room full of strangers was trying to work toward her well-being and getting her established to be able to be everything that she can be. This girl has already picked up on English and is in school doing really well, very concerned about her education, and has set goals for herself, has made choices for herself that you wouldn't expect a 16-year-old to be able to conceptualize and make those choices, especially one that's been through so much trauma. But just adding on to that point, it's just time. It's just my consistent time. It's not any special skills that I have. It's just being able to empathize with her as a human and have those conversations and make sure that those needs, mentally, physically, emotionally, are being met. Not to
Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate it. I think you Thank you, Taylor. It is a serious subject. 974. 974. Hey. All right. I'm adjourned.